Oh, got to take the old meds or the blood pressure goes sky high. Wonder who's going to show up tonight. Let's see what my sister mentioned about me in a comment on Facebook. Funny, my computer gets it before my phone does. It's not even on my phone. Oh, there it is. Finally got there. Seems that there is a position opening for a restaurant manager of a bakery in the next town over. I need to start work on a resume and get it emailed to this guy or girl. All it says is Garrett. I'm assuming that's the last name. As quick as possible. Because that little town is only 15 minutes away from where I live, and it's all back roads, and I don't have to worry about being pulled over by Coffee County police officers whenever it's in a completely opposite direction. And I'd much rather do my business in Baxley, Georgia than Coffee County, Georgia anyway. Being pulled over 3 times in a year and harassed by them over stupid shit, and I wasn't even speeding, never got a ticket. Did get one warning though, but I don't want to talk about the police. Let's just put it this way: I don't talk to them, and I prefer they not talk to me. So we just try to avoid each other, and we'll get along fine. Hey, somebody must be here. I just got a thumbs up and a one on the participants. Who do we got with us tonight? Who is the next contestant on The Price is Right? Well, Bob, it says that the only participant is Morgan, and that's me. And I can't come on down. I'm already here. Hey, Jim. Yep, I was just talking to myself because there's nobody else better to talk to in the world. Because if you argue with yourself and you lose, it means you kicked your own ass. And I've never lost an argument with myself, so I'm not kicking my own ass. No, but I just didn't want people to see me just sitting here in case they clicked on the live show later on as a replay and nothing. And my sister had just sent me something on Facebook. There's an opening for a manager for a restaurant over in the next county over, a bakery at that. That's just exactly what I need. I already cracked all of my teeth in the front when I got in that car accident and broke my back, and I'm finally getting oral surgery to get all that fixed, and I'll wind up with false teeth. So I'll be able to eat all the sweets I want with no cavities, but my ass will get fat because it's Holt's Bakery, and Holt's Bakery is damn good. And they finally branched out. And I'll have to check around to see if I know anybody in that line, because I've worked with so many different restaurant chains. I'm pretty sure I know somebody in that corporation. And if not, then I know somebody who knows somebody. Somehow or another, I've probably got a connection with that corporation. Because I've managed Hardee's, McDonald's, Arby's, Wendy's, some other place I can't even remember. I've been in like 10 different stores in 25 years, and every one of them, the sales went up. Customer service was top priority, and it showed. I still, to this day, it's been 15 years since I managed the McDonald's in my hometown. And to this day, I have people ask me if I will go back up there and apply and see if I can get back on as a manager there, because they need it. The service sucks. And I'm like, nope, I won't even eat there. Why would I want to work somewhere where I wouldn't eat? It's gone downhill that bad. When I was there, no, we didn't. We did it the right way. You took care of the customers, you kept that store clean, and you served good, high quality food. Or Morgan didn't fire you. He just cut your hours back till you quit. I didn't have to fire him. I wasn't giving them unemployment. Hell no. I just cut the hours back 2 or 3 hours a week, and after about a month, they'd be gone. I learned how to do that from some really good managers, which I've worked with some really good managers and learned a lot from them. And I've had some pretty crappy managers, and I learned a lot from them too, especially how not to act. I didn't get the chicken run done today, but I got it started. I thought that the chicken, the wire that I had to go around the outside was uh, 6 foot. Turns out it's like 3 foot, so I'm gonna have to double up on the wire and use the 2x4 inch square on the bottom, and then I'm going to go with a sheep wire across the top. I'm going to overlap it to where they're not going to be able to fly up and jump out of a hole. It's going to be a pain in my butt to get done, but I'm going to get it done. I'll finish it tomorrow, more than likely, and then start rearranging some electric fence so I can snatch up a few T-posts. Have some extra ones for the garden for trellises. And I've got my brother-in-law, I ordered light poles because he still works with a power company with Pike Electric. And he's brought home just trailer loads of light poles, and we'll cut them into 8-foot lengths and put them 3.5, 4 foot in the ground for our corner post, and then use the metal T-post for the rest of the span. And we don't have to worry about replacing stuff, because whenever you put 3 light poles, there's fence posts in the ground in the corner, and then you take the cross arm that hangs up in the air that's got the wire hanging on it, and you use that as your brace in between. As long as it don't touch the ground, them things will never rot. Me and my dad built a fence 25 years ago, and it's still just as tight today as it was the day we pulled it tight with the tractor and the come along. It's tight as Dick's hat band. You could, as the military would say, you could bounce a quarter off the bed sheet. It's still just as tight as day one. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks he'll get me about 20 of them over here so I can get started on perimeter fencing mine and take my electric fence down. And then I'm just going to leave 2 hot strands up and a ground. Well, I won't even need the ground. I'll let the fence be the ground. That way it'll keep the goats from rubbing all over it and just tearing at the flinders, because their goats are rough on fence. I I never knew they climb. I knew they climbed rocks and they liked climbing, but I mean, I never knew how rough they were on a fence until I got to watching my goats out there on just one little old pallet gate that I've got. The way they climb on it, they've already got it loosened up, and I'm fixing to have to go replace that with bigger screws. And man, there's some hard animals on infrastructure. I'm not gonna lie. And right before I went live, I filled up a few cups. I'm gonna plant some artichoke seeds tonight. I've never grown artichokes, but I'm not too keen on the leaves, but I love artichoke hearts. And my sister makes a mean artichoke salad. So I'm going to try and grow these things. If it works out, I'll just cut the top off, pull the leaf, pull it all apart, and just take the heart out, can them up, carry it into my sister, and say, just every once in a while, make me an artichoke salad, and I'll be happy. And I want to try those sunchokes. And I think there's another name they call them that's choke, but it's not artichoke. It's they'll they'll spread everywhere, and you eat the tubers off of them. Papa Pepper grows sunchokes. I'd like to try those, and I can't remember what these things are, but choke is in the name, and I'd like to try those. They're all perennial. That way, you don't have to plant them every year. You know, you just go out there and dig you up a few and leave a few, and you're good to go. Yeah, Jerusalem. That's it. And the artichoke is supposed to be perennial, so every year I wouldn't have to replant. So I'm gonna try and do that. But I wouldn't mind trying those. I've never had them. I don't know if I want them then, because I can eat just about anything and have gas. The older I get, the worse it is. Yeah, I've heard they're potato like. That's why I wanted to try them, because I thought they might make really good French fries. Because I'm not fond of sweet potato French fries. I just bake my sweet potato or make my sweet potatoes candied or in a pie, and I'm happy. Don't fry them for me. I don't like them. The only thing we got wild that grows around here that's really edible is we've got plums, we've got wild muscadines, we have huckleberries, and every once in a while you might find um, dewberries, but we don't have very many dewberries anymore. And occasionally you'll find a big old patch of wild onions. And how they got there, I don't know, because you can tell no houses wherever they're usually around the creek bottoms. There'll be a patch of wild onions or something growing. But I didn't get a whole lot done today. I sat over at my sister's and did a whole lot of talking with her and BSing instead of doing chicken run, but at least I got some of it done and I'm ready to get started on it. Oh man, you go in the creek here to go fishing, you better have eaten enough garlic to kill a vampire, or else them chiggers are gonna be all over you. We call them red bugs down here. And them things, good Lord. There's been a many a time I get clear fingernail polish and just paint over them things just to suffocate them and kill them. That and Campho-Phenique, that works pretty good on them too. No, they don't. Everything is so disposable nowadays. I remember whenever you could buy a truck and actually drive the damn thing for 20 or 30 years and pass it on to your kids after you were gone. If you get that thing paid off now without any major repair, you have done something amazing because there's going to be a major repair before it's paid off. And it used to be 3 and 5 year loans. Now, to make people feel better, they charge them more money, and instead of a 3 or 5 year loan, they got 6 or 7 year loans. So that way, it keeps the payment the same as it was. You're just paying longer. And you know it didn't cost them that much more to build that truck than it did 10 years ago. Granted, it does cost more, but not what they're charging more. That's why Morgan will always buy a used vehicle and drive the damn thing until it stops rolling. I took an old Ford Ranger and I put over 500,000 miles on it before the rear end finally fell out from under it. And you couldn't have done that with a new truck today for anything. 100,000 miles and you've done something. You've accomplished more than the lifespan of the vehicle if you get 100,000 miles out of a car. I've got a oh oh 02 or '04 Ford Taurus in my driveway with less than 60,000 miles on it. Original, 60,000 original miles. It was a used car from the state of Georgia, Department of Revenue, only driven in Atlanta. I've already put an alternator on it, a complete front end on it. I've got sensor lights going off all over it, but it's nothing that has to be repaired. It's just an exhaust sensor. It says the gas cap is open whenever I know it's closed. The AC works, but the fan works when it wants to. There's electrical shorts all in the blame thing. They don't make anything like they used to. But I do remember back in the early 80s and late 70s, the Ford plant didn't want to pay their people. So they would start making odd welds and they would put a nut or a washer in those welds and leave a little gap so that while you were driving down the road, you would hear it rattle and hum and beep or bang around and it would drive you nuts. And then once they got the raise, they stopped doing that. And then they came out with the phrase quality is job one. But I thought that was funny as crap. You didn't pay them? No, they didn't go on strike. They just started fucking your crap up. And to tell you the truth, I'd love to have one of those old Fords that's been made that way, that's got those little washers that rattle and ding around while you're driving down the road. That would be kind of neat. Now, Dodge makes pretty good vehicles. Dodge is a pretty tough thing, and if I'm buying a truck, my first choice is probably going to be a Dodge, and then my second would be a Ford. Chevy comes in, and I hate to admit it, but it comes in after an import. I would take a Toyota before I'd take a Chevy. Chevy makes a piss poor automobile, in my opinion. That old 92 Ford Ranger, man, I gave it, I was younger then. I was in my 20s. I gave it hell, and it gave me 500,000 miles. I drove it for over 12 years. And my dad, he put 100,000 of those miles on it himself, driving it back and forth 65 miles one way to work every morning. Yeah, you're right. I don't want a plastic bed on anything, but I'll take that over a Chevy any day. But my top choice would be a Dodge, and then my next choice would be a Ford. At least those hold up. I've had Chevy cars, and I've had a Chevy S10, and I've known people with Silverados, and they just constant problems. The Chevy Malibu I had, it was a constant pain in my rear end, always fixing something on it. The S10 that I drove it for about a year and it got rid of it. It was a piece of crap. And it was one of the six cylinders, so it should have been more than adequate for what I need because I don't haul anything heavy. Maybe a truckload of firewood once in a while when I was younger, but man, it just wasn't worth the money. And then it started to tear up, and the interior went first. I mean, the interior was made out of the cheapest stuff they could get their hands on. The seats started to rip. I mean, it was like they made it out of Naga hide. I don't know what a Naga is or where you go hunt these things, but apparently they murdered a whole colony of Nagas to tan the hide to make those seats, and they weren't worth nothing. They must have been bad Nagas. Subaru was another one that's a tough vehicle. I had a cousin in the Marine Corps. He had a Subaru, and this was back in the late 70s, early 80s. And he gave that blame little thing hell. I ain't lying. Drove it across the country several times. He'd take it mud bog and everything, and it was just a little old Subaru car. It was tough as nails, and he wound up selling it and still got a good price for it. And it it looked like it'd been through the ringer by the time he got done. But him and his buddies in that little Subaru, ooh wee, they went everywhere, did everything in it. The only thing he didn't do was wreck it. And if I'm not mistaken, I think a lady ran into his rear end one time, and that was the only body damage that was done to it. But you couldn't stop that little Subaru from running. The engine and the drivetrain in that thing was tough. But then again, Subaru's also the ones that made a lot of the airplanes for the Japanese to fly in World War II. Subaru and Mitsubishi, they made quality stuff. I ain't gonna lie. Ask those World War II pilots. They had to fight against some things, and fight they had to because that was a quality built airplane. They were tough as nails, and they actually had performance. Somebody else popped in for a minute, but they popped right back out. I don't know who it was. It never showed up on the participants. I guess I'm not their cup of tea. I must not be refined enough. Maybe if I hold my pinky out while I drink, that'll help. You know, kind of be high society. I always laugh whenever I see people do that in restaurants. Surprised how many people still do that. You stick a little pinky up in there whenever they take a drink out of their cup. That's it. I need sunglasses. Should I go with aviators or should I go with the classic Ray Bans like the Blues Brothers? I'm thinking Blues Brothers with the classic Ray Bans. There's nothing like a rubber biscuit. Later on, I don't have to get up early tomorrow. Later on, I think I'm gonna see if I can't find Animal House or the Blues Brothers on Netflix and watch that. I haven't seen those in years. Or maybe Porky's. I've been on an '80s movies kick lately, and I've been watching a lot of John Hughes' movies with Molly Ringwald, 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, and then I started watching some of the '80s TV shows. But I need to get back to that. Yeah, Porky's was a great one, or at least the first one was. The rest of them they were okay, but Porky's was great. But I need to get back. I want to see Caddyshack again, Animal House, um, Revenge of the Nerds. I'd like to see that one again. There's several of them I'd love to see again. Some of the classic comedies from the '80s. Maybe a few of them will be on Netflix. I'll have to look them up later on. The preacher woman down the road, she's trying to do a version of jive talking as a religious gospel song. And I told her she made me want to go watch John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever. And for the last 4 nights, they don't take no for an answer. I've got a pork chop in my refrigerator. I'm going to have to throw away because it's going to go bad. I guess I'm going to have to eat it tomorrow with an egg, and instead of steak and eggs, I'll have pork chop and eggs because they won't let me say no. I can't politely decline. And today I gave them a, my sister donates to the Knights of Columbus because my brother-in-law is a Catholic, and they save me out some stuff they know I like every now and then, and she calls me and I go get it. Well, there was a bunch of black beans, and I don't eat black beans, a few other things, and some deer sauces. The airplane was a great one. The red line is for loading and unloading only. No, the yellow line is for loading and unloading only. And the lady that, yeah, I speak jive. Great movies. And the first couple police academies, yeah, those were great. Yeah, I like those. Yeah, you give me a couple more ideas. If I can't find one, I'll find something there tonight from the '80s to watch. But these people they won't let me get away from going down there to eat with them. And I know they're lonely and they're uneducated. They're trying their best to run a church, but we're just getting tired. They were down here 3 times this afternoon. I gave the guy a lawnmower deck to strip the parts off of so that he could use them on his lawnmower deck because it was the same size. I said, just bring me back the deck itself because it's worthless and I'm going to use it as a feed trough for my hog. He comes and gets it. And then he brings it back. Then he comes back for something else. And then he comes back to tell me supper's ready. And I can't say no. They won't let me say no. If I do say no, he'll be back in 20 minutes with a plate in his hand. Here, we brought it to you. I can't win for losing. The first time he pulled up and mentioned Jesus, I should have just said, yes, I'm a Christian, I'm a Baptist, and I'm not changing my mind. So thank you, have a nice day. Anything you got to say about religion or politics, I've made up my mind and you're not changing it. But no, I had to be friendly. That's good neighbors right there. You know, and I ought not complain about these folks. They're real good hearted, but sometimes you just want at least one day without being bothered. And I may get one day a week where they don't come down here, but normally every day, and it's usually within 10 minutes of me getting home, they show up. And it's like the first hour or two after I get home from school or work, or if I'm through with what I'm doing outside and I come inside, leave me alone. I don't want to be bothered. I just want to sit, I want to rest. I want to read over a newspaper, a magazine, watch a YouTube video, something to decompress and, just level myself back out. But they've got the time, and I swear there's trees with cameras somewhere in my yard where they know whenever I show up at home, because within 10 minutes they're here every time almost. But maybe tomorrow I'll actually have a day where I don't have them come down here. But knowing my luck, I'll get to a part of the project where I need a third arm, and I'll have to go down there and ask, hey, can you come down here and help me hold this fence and stretch it for me so I can get it nice and tight? Because I can't find my come along. I don't know what happened to it. I've only moved 3 times, and I don't know where it went. And the worst thing is I got a $65 come along somewhere that I only paid $14 for brand new, and I can't find it. I hate when my tools get legs and walk away, but a lot of my tools do. And then he sharpened my hoe with his grinder for me, being nice, because I'd never sharpened this hoe, and it would have taken me an hour to do it with a bastard file. And then he goes to sharpen his machete right after my hoe, and grinder, his angle grinder burns up. And he takes a little nut off and says, here, if you ever get the opportunity and you can afford it, if you see a cheap angle grinder and it's this size, pick it up. Yeah, buddy, I'm going to buy you a tool. I'll let you borrow any of my tools. If I buy an angle grinder, I'm buying one for me, and you can ask me to borrow it. Yeah, I'm not buying you one. But thank goodness that he borrowed a hoe from somebody, because he'd already borrowed my hoe one time, and I had to go down there and get it because I needed it for my garden. He did bring it back the next day like he said he would. But I've given him some gardening advice, and he hadn't listened to half of it. So I'm gonna keep an eye on his garden, see how it turns out. Hell, his wife had to tell him how to put the potatoes in the ground to plant Irish potatoes. I thought that was rather funny. And I've given him seeds, but I didn't tell him when to plant them. And I didn't tell him that if he would just watch what I do, and whenever I plant, he plant. I ain't telling none of that. I'm just going to wait and see how it turns out for him. See if he's actually smart enough to come ask advice. Hey, when do I plant so and so? Because he never grew up gardening. I mean, he grew up around the garden, but he wasn't involved in the garden. He was involved in eating the garden. Oh, my phone keeps going off. What is it? Ken Folk from Georgia replied, "Gotta love it." Yeah, he had a video and he didn't know how to deal with his fire ants without using poison and didn't want to use poison. So I told him, and they're in his greenhouse. So I told him to get some diatomaceous earth or either some boric acid. That's organic enough. That'll get rid of them. Oh, I imagine because a 12-foot ladder costs a ton nowadays. And like you were talking about earlier, they're not made near as well as they were 15, 20 years ago or longer. I guarantee you is 40 years old and it's in better shape than one right off the shelf today. Although the little part that flips down that's supposed to hold your paint can, he messed that up. But we never used a ladder for painting no how. We always used the ladder to get up on the roof or up in the attic or up in the pecan tree. We never did it for painting. So that was basically a useless, that was just an ornamental shelf for us. Oh, it says we've got two watching now. Somebody else join us? Nope, now we're back down to one. I'm telling you, I got to start holding my finger out whenever I do the tea. That's got to be it. I haven't seen my weather for next week, but the rest of this week we're supposed to be in the low to mid 70s. I got two cats. I got Easy Boy and I got Cell Kitty. Cell Kitty keeps on getting on my feet or trying to sit in my lap whenever I don't want him to, and he gets tossed across the room or kind of gently kicked across the room, not too hard to make him bounce off the wall. But Easy Boy now, that cat, he's 16 years old now, but he's still a mouser. If it moves and crawls, he'll catch it. The little one, he's learning, but unless I can come up with somebody to hold the front end so I can operate on the back end, he's fixing to be a completely outside cat. That little tail's starting to do that little twitch thing. And it's only a matter of time before he starts spraying. And I'm sorry, but he ain't staying in my house if he's spraying. This is my territory. Any marking to be done, I'll be marking, not him. And he's so needy, he can't go anywhere, or I can't go anywhere without him. Yeah, they don't see a bunch of people talking, they move along. As a matter of fact, one participant on the little thing with the people, but then I click on the participant button, and it doesn't even have your name. So I guess officially you're not here. I don't know, but it's all right. I've got two alternate accounts with different email addresses. Every night I put one of them on and just go to the videos and hit play all and just let it start. I'll get to the 4,000 watch hours before I get to the 1,000 subs. Because this has been a strange week. Usually by now I've had 2 or 3 new subs, but this week I've actually lost 3. It's odd. I hadn't even gained 1. But one day I'll get monetized. I got to get out there and do some more how-to videos, but I just haven't had a chance, and it's really not time. And I'm not going to sit here and video myself putting seed in a red Solo cup, planting indoors like all these people live in tradition, roots, and refuge. It's time to start season. They put the little label in every damn sale in the 6-pack. I mean, come on. Really? You can't remember what you put where with one damn stick to remind you, hey, this 6-pack is so and so? Because I don't know anybody that'll take a 6-pack tray of sales and put 6 different things in it. If you do, chances are you're growing way more varieties than you need to, or you're OCD from hell, and you probably should seek professional help and maybe medication. And that's another thing. I'm not as pretty as Jess either, so naturally they're not going to click on my ugly mug. That, and I'm probably a little bit more salty than most folks because the live streams I watch, they're all so polite. I'm a little bit more candid than most of them. I watched a little bit of that 1870s Homestead live stream earlier, and I'm a little bit more candid than they are. I'm a little bit freer with my speech. I'm not going to be. I'm not going to be tied down with. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be hateful, racist, mean spirited, or anything like that. But I come across with a grain of salt. I tell it like it is. I don't sugarcoat anything. And you've probably already seen that. You know, I come across a little bit coarse to most people. But it's like the neighbors down the road know. They know my attitude. They know my personality. I'm a smart ass. I say what's on my mind. I don't care if it hurts your feelings. If it's the truth, it's the truth. But if you need something and I've got it, I will help you out. But on a platform like this, folks really don't know. So it's going to take me a while before I get a following where I have, which they only had 60 people watching them, you know, and they'd been on for probably 2 hours. They were on whenever I left and went down there to eat with them, and I was down there for an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours before I got back home, and they were still on. And they just quit, and they only had like 60 people watching them. And they were talking about starting their orchard. The deer were eating their trees during the wintertime, and they're going to put electric fence up to stop that. And it's like, you don't know deer very well at all, do you? Unless that fence is 16 to 20 foot tall, you ain't fixing to stop a deer from getting in because they're going to jump. And on top of that, why are you paying $30 a tree? Take some cuttings and root the things. I mean, my Lord. You're both college educated. One of you is an IT specialist. The other one does something in the same company way up there. And you read books all the time on how to grow stuff. I mean, you didn't think to get the book on plant propagation? Yeah, there's a whole lot of dumb in the world. And that's one reason why I've got to hurry up and finish my degree. And get a decent job somewhere where I don't have to be around a lot of people because I just cannot put up with stupid anymore. Stupid drives me up the wall. And I'm hoping in the next 5 or 10 years, I'll get to the point in my life where the only bills I have are my car insurance, my gas to get where I got to go, my light bill, my cable, and my phone bill. And that's it. Other than that, I won't need no money, so I won't have to have no 75 to $100,000 a year job to make it. You know, less than $1,000 a month, and I'll be fine, and still be able to put money up for retirement. Especially if I get this little homestead situation all down pat and organized and streamlined. Yeah, Morgan won't be going to the grocery store for anything but things that he can't supply for himself, like sugar and rice and flour, because everything else I'll grow here. I already do my chickens. I'm working on my pork now. I'll have dairy with my goats and red meat with my goats. I'll sell some and I'll eat some, and I already grow quite a bit of the food I eat. All my fresh vegetables, none of them come from the grocery store. They all come from outside. But I'm looking forward to that day. True financial independence. The American dream. I wonder if that's still a real thing or not. I think the American dream only works if you're a foreigner and you come here. I don't think it's for us. And they talk about white privilege. I wish I had some of that white privilege. I'm white and I ain't got no privileges at all. As a matter of fact, I'm scrutinized harder than most white people are, especially whenever it comes to the police pulling you over for stupid stuff, just trying to get an arrest. Said I hit the white line, pulling me over for a sobriety check, 9:30 in the morning. Dude, do I look like I've been drinking at 9:30 in the morning? Well, can you roll your other window down, sir? No, I cannot, because you don't need to cross breeze from my car. You're not going to smell alcohol and you're not going to smell marijuana. And I don't drink to begin with. Well, sir, there's a beer can in your car. I said, yeah, it was by my mailbox. I live by a highway. They're all in my front yard. That one was right there. So I went ahead and picked it up and I threw it over there. Look at the rest of those cans. How many beer cans do you count? You count one. And there's 7 or 8 Coke cans over there. If I've got an addiction, it's to Coca-Cola. You ought to be able to look and tell that. Needless to say, I have very little respect for our law enforcement, which I think we've discussed that. The tyrannical arm of the left wing. The modern day Gestapo. That's the truth. It has. It's turned into that. And in the next 20 years, it's going to get even worse. I've always had the motto, buy bullets and buy seeds. As long as you've got those two things, you will be fine. Because I don't tell people what kind of weapons I have in my house. All they need to know is I'm armed. That's all they need to know. They don't need to know that no matter what room of this house I'm in, I am armed and I have plenty of ammunition. I have plenty of seed, so I can pretty well hold off the hordes and still eat. And if it ever came down to one of those shit hit the fan situations, oh yeah, I might be coarse and salty now, but I'll be mean as hell then. Cause I ain't going out like that. You ain't fixing to steal my food or nothing from me. You should have done your own preparations. And that's something that these modern homesteaders are talking about being prepared. They don't even know what prepared is. My grandmother's freezer, when she passed away, had food in it that was 10 years old, and most of it was still good. They were preppers, but they were doing it out of necessity because they didn't know what the next year held as far as their garden coming in or what was going to be provided. You know, they had no idea. So they always put up more than what they needed. These young homesteaders today, they just want enough to make it through the year until the next garden comes in. Well, what happens if the weather changes and you don't have a next garden? What happens if you've got a beautiful garden and all of a sudden a tornado comes through and now you have no garden? What are you going to do? Probably won't even have an issue work. It'll be destroyed too. And you're really going to be up that creek then. Roll that finger out, maybe we'll get a view. But yeah, I get a kick out of some of these guys. And that's the only reason why I stay sub to them is because they're my comedy relief. It makes me feel good knowing that I can actually take something and turn it into a useful product. Whereas they've got to actually go out and buy material and build something that looks so nice, and their gardens have got to be so pretty and pleasing to the eye. I'm sorry, my garden is all straight rows. I might put a few flower plants here and there to attract pollinators, but I don't have beds of flowers in my garden mixed in. I don't have raised beds. Mine's all in the ground. It's grown like an agricultural crop because that's exactly what it is. It's an agricultural crop for me to eat, which I guess tomorrow I need to go ahead and get those collards up out the ground. And I don't really have enough to can any, and I'm not that big into collards, so I'll keep a mess for myself, and then I'll take the rest down to those folks at the church. And I'm sure that tomorrow night I'll be eating collards down there. But anyway, they have church on Thursday, so it might not be tomorrow night. They might come down here and get me Thursday before church and say, "Come on and eat before everybody gets there." But oh well, it's better to be nice than to take it all and feed it to the hog, which I could easily do. And the hog and the goats would love to have those collards, but I'll be nice and give it to them. Although with their disability between three checks, they're pulling down damn near $40,000 a year, and Morgan makes it on $350, $400 a month. And here they are with over over $3,600 a month coming in. Yeah, in the last year, I really lost a lot of faith in people. which I didn't like people to begin with because I realized how working in fast food really jaded me because I saw how the other half are, how stingy they can be, how backstabbing they can be, self-serving, inconsiderate, conceited, and overly pious. I've seen all that in the last year. Now, the people I've run across and the people who have come in and out of my life in the last year, that's why I live by myself with 2 cats, 50 chickens, 3 goats, and a hog. They're better company than the people I meet. Plus, I can eat them and I don't feel bad. Although, granted, if I got hungry enough, I'd probably eat my neighbors. But I'm not in the Donner Party and I'm not traveling across the Rockies at the wrong time of the year, so I don't think I got to worry about eating anybody anytime soon. I need to start growing my own tobacco if I'm going to keep smoking, but I need to give these things up. But I do need to get some tobacco plants because dry the leaves or just feed a leaf every now and then to the goats. Natural dewormer. The nicotine in the tobacco leaf, knock out any worm in them. Plus, you soak it in some water, let it sit in the sun for a day or so, spray your garden with it, kill any bug out there. I saw a video from Hoss Tools about growing heirloom tomatoes, and somehow the way they worded it, it was clickbait. It was like they were giving tips on how to grow tomatoes. You know, they were giving tips on buying seed, and I pointed that fact out that I thought you were giving tips on growing tomatoes. You're not giving tips. You're giving advice on buying your seed. I have the catalog. Thank you. And the dude comes back and he gives me a smart ass answer about tobacco mosaic virus, spotted wilt virus, and all this, that, and the other. And I'm like, yeah, guy, I live across the state from you. I know all about those. I grow non-hybrid tomatoes and I have a good crop every year. The only diseases I worry about are airborne viruses. Well, this one is spread by aphids and this one is spread by thrips. And if you're in an area where those are, then there's nothing you can do to stop it. And I'm like, dude, if you can't control thrips and aphids in your garden, then you have more garden than you need. And if that's the case, you need to seriously reconsider the way you're gardening because I walk every row of my garden every day. And I'm not organic completely by any means, but I do what's called integrated pest control management. I have places set up for the bugs to eat with flowers and weeds and stuff that I don't mow. I have chickens. I have biological predator insects in areas that I don't spray at all. I don't have much problem at all with any disease or any bugs in my garden because, and I explained to him, I've got a degree in chemistry and I have a degree in history and a minor in biology. And I'm working on interbreeding the BHN 502 hybrid tomato, which is more resistant to diseases than the hybrids you sell, with the Cherokee Purple, and in about 3 years, I'll have a stable strain. Genetics are fun, even on a small scale by amateurs like me, and we can be successful at it. And I think it kind of ticked him off that I put it to him point blank. Yeah, he mentioned flea beetles and aphids. Flea beetles carry the tobacco spotted wilt, and aphids carry the tobacco mosaic virus. And they are easily enough controlled, either with organic pesticide or without. But if you don't walk your garden every day, you don't know they're there. And it's like I told him, if I see the first sign of a disease in my plant, the leaf comes off, the limb comes off, or the plant comes out, depending on how bad it is. And that doesn't go in my compost pile until after it goes through the hog or the chicken first. Then it go into the compost pile. And I normally don't have much problem with squash bugs, because every once in a while I'll turn the chickens loose and let them go in the garden for a couple hours. Because in a couple hours, they're happy to be out and they're eating bugs and they're not getting into the vegetables themselves. But if I leave them out there all day long, then they're going for the leaves and the fruits and stuff like that. So about 2 or 3 hours of them in the garden, boy, they will tear some squash bugs up there in the out there. But last year I had a couple squash plants to get divine borer, and I just took my pocket knife, saw where it was, and I just cut the vine open. Took my pocket knife, cut him in half, and just left him in the plant, and the plant was fine. It still, that one leaf eventually was a little bit smaller than the rest, but and I eventually cut it off, but they still produced just as much as if they'd never been attacked. Yeah, you mentioned you couldn't have chickens where you live. It'd be nice if you could, because they are some wonderful, which, check your laws. If it only specifically says chickens, then go get you some ducks. If ducks aren't mentioned in the law, or if it doesn't say poultry in general, it just says chickens, get you some ducks. Or a couple, well, no, don't get guineas, because good Lord knows, they're so loud, you'd be pissed all the neighbors off. They'd be shot you and the guineas. Because guineas don't scratch like chickens do, but they don't eat the vegetables in the garden like chickens do. They just eat bugs. Yeah, if you just get a few hens, they're not going to be that loud. And just build you a 3 square foot is all a chicken needs for space to be able to roam around in. And just build you a little chicken tractor, put it on 4 wheels, like maybe a wagon turned upside down or something like that, and the wheels on the bottom, and just pull it from one spot to another every day, and just let them have some fresh grass, and run them down in between your garden rows. They'll stick their heads out through the fence and get whatever bugs they can get. They might get a few leaves, but that won't hurt your plants or anything. And then the next year, you put your rows on top of where you drove the chicken tractor this year, and you got fertilizer already built right in. But definitely check your local ordinance and see what it says. If it specifically mentions chickens but doesn't mention poultry in general, I'd go get me a couple ducks. And runner ducks are good egg producers. Rolling ducks, I believe, are pretty good egg producers too. And runner ducks don't require the water as much as the other types of ducks. They're more of a land duck. They don't do much pond swimming or anything like that. And they'd be good in your garden as weeders. And they're not as hard on plants as chickens are. I've tinkered with the idea of getting myself a few ducks this year because I got the pond over on the other side. I wouldn't even bother trying to collect the duck eggs. I just let them hatch them out, and then whenever I wanted a duck to eat, I'd just go get me one. I'd let them multiply, maybe sell a few whenever I got too many of them, or either just put them in the freezer. My sister and brother-in-law, they like duck. I'd give them some ducks, dress them out, carry them over to them. They'd be tickled pink because my sister likes to make duck a la range, and she's actually a pretty damn good cook. And I'm looking forward to these chickens to get big enough for me to butcher. Because if I get the opportunity to sell them, I will. But I don't really care if I sell them or not because I can raise a chicken to put in the freezer for the same price or less than what I buy it at the grocery store for. So why not just suck it up, spend an afternoon butchering 25 or 30 chickens and be done with it? I don't even have to have the automatic plucker. I can have a chicken plucked in 5 minutes by hand. 5 minutes, five divided into six. I can do 12 birds an hour. In 3 hours, I can have, let's just say, 10 birds an hour. In 3 hours, I can do 30 birds. And then another hour or two to eviscerate them, and I'm done. It would take longer to heat up the water and to bleed them out than it would be for me to pluck them and clean the insides. Um, it depends on the breed, but if you're buying from somewhere like Tractor Supply, usually they'll tell you the date that they got them in, and they were born the day before they got them in. No more than 3 days before they got them in. They usually get them within 24 to 48 hours of them being hatched. And you can also look at their beak, and there's a little protrusion on the top of the top beak called the egg tooth, what they use to crack through the shell, and that'll let you know that it's less than a week old if it's still got the egg tooth. The egg tooth will fall off within a week. That might be a good way to go because if you know some folks that have chickens, best thing to do would be to go talk to them, ask them how old their birds are, and start looking at them because birds, when they age, they do start taking on gray feathers. Um, their feet, the spurs on them will be longer. Even the hens, they're not spurs like rooster spurs, but they will get a protrusion above their ankles on the mid leg, and it'll stick out further the older that they are. But I would suggest getting the ones from the auctions That way you could, like you just said, you can get the eggs quicker. And even if they're older birds and they only lay you a few eggs a week instead of an egg a day, you're still getting all the eggs you need. And whenever it comes time and you find someone that's got young pullets that are just about to come into to laying as hens, you can butcher your old ones. Now, granted, they're not going to be worth a flip as fried chicken because they're going to be tough and stringy. But as far as baking and stewing, they're great for dumplings, and they do okay for baking. They're not as stringy whenever you cook them that way. I mean, they're great for soups and stews and bacon, but as far as fried chicken, you want the youngest you can get because they're a lot more tender. But that's what I would do if I were going to start with chickens and I were in your position. I would see if I couldn't get some at an auction. You know, get you three or four to start with, see how it goes. If nobody complains, you might want to up it to six, and you have enough to sell a few dozen here and there, or either give a few dozen away to keep the neighbors quiet. You know, hush eggs. You know, they're getting free eggs. They're not going to report you. You know, and then you've got the manure for your garden. You've got something to eat, the waste from your kitchen. You know, it's just an all around better ecological system for you to work with. But my goal is to maintain around 15 to 20. Yeah, definitely go down to that one that you have close by. Talk to them, ask questions, you know, and get to know him. You know, find out how long he's had them, if he's had any complaints brought up against him by anybody, or does he pay the neighbors off with eggs to keep them quiet, you know, things like that. You know, ask him how long he's had them, you know, just your general feel out the lay of the land and go from there. Because I'm pretty sure that you could probably get away with it. And the worst that can happen is a city inspector see them, and then you've got to get rid of four or five chickens, which, you know, if you're like me, no big deal. I got to get rid of my chickens. Stock pot they go. You know, because no matter how much I love my chickens, I love to eat my chickens more than I like to talk to them. And whenever I used to drink, I would go out on the back porch every afternoon right after I got off work. I'd get a beer. I'd sit on the back steam and I'd watch the chickens. That beer for about an hour. It'd take me that long to drink one beer because I'd just be sitting there watching the chickens, just relax and decompressing from the day's work. And I loved watching them. Each one has a personality all their own. I had one that would fly up and sit on my shoulder and eat food out of my hand. I looked like a redneck pirate. If I had an eye patch and a feather in my hat, I could have been a redneck pirate. Oh, it says we got two watching now. Two thumbs up. Who else has joined us? Jump in the conversation. We're talking about chickens in a neighborhood that has an ordinance against chickens. And we're thinking about breaking the law. Or like Beavis and Butthead used to say, breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law. Yeah, I might go look those up too. Hey, Kelly, how you doing? Oh yeah, whenever that chicken was on my shoulder, I looked like a redneck pirate. I'm not lying. Yeah, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a day or two. So, how's life been treating you, Kelly? That's why I live in the country too. They don't even have building codes where I live in the country. So I could, if I wanted to, I could go get one of those tiny little storage sheds, fix up the inside like Bobblehead Homestead's doing, and put me an Airbnb out there in the goat pasture and charge people rent to sleep with the goats. Yeah, it's the same with me. School, procrastination, work, school, procrastination, work. My motivation for some reason lately hasn't been kicking in till about dark 30. And if I had a street light, it wouldn't be so bad. I would go out and I would work at night and do stuff outside at night, and that wouldn't bother me. I'd work till probably about now, and then I'd come in. But somehow or another, I got to get my motivation back to where when I get up in the morning, I'm ready to do something. Hey, it says we got three. Who else has joined us? We're talking about motivation, chickens, and work. Whoever it is that just joined us, so jump on in with the conversation. Enjoy yourself. Have a good time. And if you want to talk about something different, then by all means, just mention something. We'll talk about it. Up now it says we got four. Hey, Virginia, how you doing? Missed you last night. It was just me and Jim, but we had us a good conversation. So how's the weather up in Long Island? Has Alexandria Occasional Cortex told you that you can have good weather yet, or is she still making you have climate controlled weather because the climate's bad and it's going to kill us all in 12 years? I don't blame you. Sometimes it's better to go to bed early. But if I go to bed early, I wake up so early that there's nothing I can do except sit and watch YouTube. Oh, so you're at work getting paid to watch TV, huh? Smart. I like the way you think. We haven't had any wind here today. I think tomorrow they're calling for some breezes, but not heavy winds. But I've seen some folks on YouTube that they've had a lot of wind lately. Oh, waiting to clock in. Unless they tell me otherwise, once I get there, I'm clocking in because I'm at work for a reason and I ain't there to sit there and wait. That's the same way where I work. We're not allowed to be on phones, but most of them do it anyway. I've got my phone in my pocket, and unless it rings, I don't bother with it. And if it rings, I'll see. And if it's somebody I know and it might be important, I answer it. Other than that, I just put it back in my pocket. And I'll look at them and say, if you don't like it, tough. I walk out right now. My parents are in their mid 80s and early 80s, and I never know what's going on with them health wise. So if you don't like me looking at my phone to see who's calling, screw you. I'm out of here. My family is more important than your damn job. And I tell them all that up front. Phone stays in my pocket. And if it rings, I will check it. But as far as playing around on Facebook and YouTube and all that, nah, I ain't got time for that. I'm too busy. I'd rather get my job done, and that way, whenever it's time for me to go, I can clock out and be on my merry way. I don't want to be there no longer than I have to because I don't work enough hours to get overtime anyway. So, me staying 10 minutes late don't add up to an extra hour a week on the days I work. So I ain't worried about that. Well, we don't have very many limbs to fall down around here anymore. The last couple of years, we've had hurricanes come through and take care of that for us that the power company didn't take care of before they got here. The hurricanes took care of it for them. We had Matthew one year, and then I forget the name of the one last year that came through, which is really odd. We don't. I can't remember ever having a year where there were hurricanes back to back, year to year, and I don't remember any year where we've had two tropical storms in a year, but we've never had two hurricanes where I live in a year. But I'm sure one day it's going to happen. And that does a pretty good job at trimming trees back, let me tell you. Which, being from Long Island, I'm pretty sure Superstorm Sandy showed you exactly how well Mother Nature can prune trees. Oh, let me do my finger like this. It brought some folks in, Jim. It must be working. I'm not sure what my weather's going to be next week, but my forecast for the next 7 days is all mid 70s and one day with an 80% chance of rain. And the night times are supposed to be in the 50s. And I've got my central turned down to 60 degrees. It's only come on once tonight. And then I've got a little small space heater that it comes on about every 10 minutes. And I'm through paying the big power bills for the wintertime. No, sir. I don't do the frigid 13-degree Friday nights. No, I'm glad I live in the South. This has been the rainiest winter that I can remember since the year my daughter was born in 97. And in 97, it was worse than this. And the place I live is fairly flat, and the ditches are usually about 2.5, 3 foot deep and about 5 foot wide. And the water was up on the surface of the highway that it rained so much and never had a chance to soak in. We may have a dry summer down here, but the way it's looking, we're going we're going to we're going to be about average. And where I live, we average about 36 to 40 inches of rain a year. And our rain this winter hasn't been tremendous. It's just been plentiful. Little bits all along and along, an all day soaking rain of maybe an inch, stuff like that. We haven't been getting the downpours like a lot of places have. Well, if you live up north, I feel sorry for the snakes because you guys don't have poisonous snakes like we do. Most of your snakes are harmless. Down here in the south, we've got three kinds of rattlesnakes, two kinds of moccasins, and a coral snake. We got six different species of poisonous snake, and then a bunch of them that look like poisonous snakes, and everybody kills them, and it's like, you idiot. You just killed a good snake that eats rats and mice. Learn what you're looking at before you kill it. Yeah, we haven't had rain like that down here this winter. The most we've had in any one day has been like 2 inches. But then again, 2 days later, we might get another 2 inches. Your cats have got 9 lives in, but if they were, which is getting time. I was at my sister's house today, and my brother-in-law's younger brother was sitting on his front porch last weekend, and he just so happened to be cleaning a gun, and he's got some cats, and they all started going crazy. And there was a rattlesnake in his yard, and he killed it. And for some reason, I reckon he's just curious like me. He gutted the thing, and on the inside, the eggs were already there. So it's time for them to start breeding. Yeah, they're very stupid. But rattlesnakes, they give live birth. They don't lay eggs in a nest and crawl off and let them hatch. They give live birth, which is pretty neat to see a snake actually have snakes come out of it. It's kind of cool. Creepy, but cool. When I was younger, I took a ROTC class where we were rappelling, and we went to this place to rappel on a field trip. And this troop of Boy Scouts is coming by, and they said, "Be careful! There's a moccasin down here by your deer." And me, the guy that was taking herpetology at the same time, I haul ass down the hill. I want to catch this snake. And sure enough, there's this snake right there by our deer, and all these Boy Scouts are standing around. They're looking at it with their Boy Scout master. And I just reached down and whoop, I grabbed him by the neck and the head. And they looked at me and I said, "Now I'm going to give you a lesson in snake identification. This is not a moccasin. The bands, do you see the bands the way they're shaped? Moccasins don't have bands shaped like this." And I said, "These colors, they're not quite right. They're not moccasin colors. Moccasins either have a copper color or they're black." I said, "This doesn't match." And then I put it in the water. And I said, "Now watch it when it swims away. All you're going to see is the head above the water. A cottonmouth is going to float on top of the water because his body's so big. That's how you know it's a cottonmouth. It's a moccasin. All other snakes that swim, except for a rattlesnake, you'll see their body on top of the water too. Their body is smaller and more muscular, so they kind of sink down, and all you see is the head. Not. I made a fool out of that poor Boy Scout master, but at least the kids learn, you know, don't kill a brown banded water snake just because you think it's a moccasin. But at my age now, unless I've got a stick and I can pin the head down, I'm not catching a poisonous snake anymore. I used to catch rattlesnakes and moccasins all the time. But at my age, my reflexes aren't what they used to be, and I'm not taking a chance. So unless I can pin the head down, nah, you're free to go, buddy. Unless you're in my front yard, then I'm sorry, but I've got to execute you. You can't live in my area. I don't go sleep out there in the bushes and trees where you sleep, so you can't sleep where I sleep. And so far, that arrangement's worked out pretty good with snakes. But yeah, up north, no poisonous snakes at all. Most of them are, like you said, garden snakes. Most of them are garter snakes or the green grass snakes and stuff like that. None of them poisonous. And it's just like people talk about the multicolored lizards. Oh, they're poisonous. They're poisonous. No, they're not. They're just a different kind of lizard. They're skinks. And there's only two poisonous lizards in the world, and both of them live in the southwest United States. One of them is the Gila monster, and the other one is the bearded lizard. And unless you let them chew on you, their bite's not going to kill you because they've got to actually, they don't have fangs. They've got to chew on you and actually gnaw to get any venom into your skin. But I can tell you what, them old big brown skinks that get to be about as long as your hand, their name is a broadhead skink. And I'll tell you what, when them things bite you, they damn well hurt. I had to quit catching them. I got bit one too many times. It hurt, especially when their little teeth break off and you don't realize it's still stuck in your skin till the next day and it starts to fester up. Ooh, you talk about sore, man. That was worse than getting bit by a rat snake because their teeth always break off in you. And I learned real quick after the first one or two of them I caught that if I got bit by one, just go ahead, take your pocket knife and rub over it and just go ahead and get them little pieces of teeth out of you. But unless it's a non-poisonous snake, I don't go after snakes anymore. I've given up the poisonous ones. But if I see a rat snake somewhere, I'll bring it to the house and I'll let it go down by the pond. I can't let it go at the house because I don't want it to find my chickens. But I will let it go at the pond or either across the road in the blueberry field. You know, 'cause blueberries when they come in season, I get a I get a nice little gift of mice from that because they come to eat the berries that fall on the ground. But I do relocate non-poisonous snakes toward my property. So far, no. And you call them chicken snakes over there, and over here we call them. Some folks call them chicken snakes, but we call them rat snakes. And they're actually a constrictor, just like a boa constrictor, and it's the only constrictor in the United States. And I used to keep a couple of them as pets. There's a gray rat snake, and then there's one that's called a corn snake. And in Florida, they have a black rat snake, and they're all three basically the same snake, just subspecies of each other. And I have the biggest one I've ever seen was 9 foot long. So they can get pretty big, and they can eat eggs, chickens, dogs, cats. But I haven't had a problem with any of them ever getting my eggs. But if I do find one in my chicken coop, he's got to go. And I'm not sure if I would, I'd probably just catch him and carry him off 10, 15 miles away and drop him off somewhere in the woods. I probably wouldn't kill him, but he's not going to be living around here if I find him in my chicken coop. The worst thing I've had a problem with getting my eggs would be other mammals like possums or coons or an egg sucking dog. So I kind of keep mine latched up pretty good to where at least a dog can't get in there. I know a coon or a possum will crawl over or they'll find a hole or something, but what part of Alabama do you live in? Black with the yellow underbelly. That sounds like the melanistic phase that's more like the Florida black rat snake. And where I live in Georgia, every once in a while we run across one of those, but not very often. There used to be a lot more, but I haven't seen one in several years. And we used to have what is called a milk snake, but it's actually a king snake. But people confuse them with coral snakes because they can't seem to remember Tuscaloosa. That's southern Alabama, right? Toward the Gulf. I had 5 hawks flying around the other day before I went to work, all in one area, and it wasn't over my chicken pen. And I was wearing black, so I snuck out with my shotgun, and I got one of them. And I've got some buildup in the chamber of my shotgun, and I got a yeah. You could be getting the black Florida version because they'll we can find those all the way up toward central Georgia area too occasionally, especially in the wetter, damper, swampier areas. You'll find them. They're good to have around the house, but if you ever can, he might bite and it might hurt, but it's not going to kill you. Just remember to watch out for teeth that might break off in your skin. But grab that sucker, throw him in a pillowcase, tie a knot in it, drive him off down the road about 15, 20 miles, dump him out in the woods. He won't find his way back. But I got one of those hawks, and then my shell didn't, the extractor pin didn't pull the empty shell out. So I missed the second one. I had another one that I had lined up, and I was fixing to bust his ass too. I would have got 2 out of the 5. And I know 2 owls around here, and I really don't want to, but I might have to take out an owl or two. I'd rather take out the hawks, but I'll take out whatever's eating my stuff. Well, it was good that you stopped by, Kelly, and I hope you have a good night at work. And if somebody pisses you off, you tell them that your friend on YouTube says slap the shit out of them because they ought not be pissing you off. That's just rude and mean, and there ain't no reason to be acting that way to folks. All right, Jim. I'll be back on, if not tomorrow night, the night after. I'll be back on again. This is the easiest way for me to get my view time up. Now, all I got to do is get to 1,000 subs and 4,000 hours, and Hey, I'll be able to go buy a hamburger at McDonald's. There you go. That's a girl. And then whenever you get off work and you see your husband, give him a big hug and a kiss, and then just slap him. And when he says, "What's that for?" just look at him and say, "I know you're going to say or do something that's going to piss me off today, and I'm just getting it out of the way right now." But you guys, you have a good night. And I guess if my favorite folks are going to get off the air, I'm going to hang out for about 10 more minutes. And if nobody shows up, then I'm going to call it a night myself, because it's getting about time that I need to be finding my other cat, getting him in the house and fed up because he ain't been in all day, and then call it a night myself, because I got a few things I got to get done tomorrow. Unless you got time to hang out in BS, Virginia, well, I'll sit here and talk with you. I mean, that's cool with me. I noticed I had some more English peas sprouting. That was good, and the potatoes, they look like they're going to make a good stand. So I've got to get a video on those done so that I can post that instead of just live streams, because I know nobody's going to sit and watch through all these live streams. I've got two other accounts with different email addresses, and I just pick a different one every night and hit play all. Start at the beginning and just go right through. Get that time up. One day I'll be able to buy that hamburger at McDonald's. I don't eat at McDonald's. McDonald's here is nasty. Sorry, I'm not paying attention for a minute. Got a little something I need to check on the phone here. My sister sent me something earlier about a management position with a bakery, just like I need to be working in a bakery where I can have a fat ass instead of being normal size like most folks. But it's a pretty good bakery. They got some really good stuff there. Cool. So, what kind of self defense are you learning? The martial arts kind, or just your basic how to break away and get away, and how to make their nuts swell up the size of grapefruits? I think everybody needs to have a little bit of self defense education, especially women, but even men need it too, because there's always that one asshole that's going to try somebody. No, they don't. And I'm just trying to get monetized so that way that I can actually reach out to places like Tractor Supply and things like that and get some corporate sponsors and affiliate links, because apparently that's where the money really is in affiliate links and stuff like that. getting your brand out there and getting noticed, because having a corporate sponsor, I might not get paid in cash. I might get paid in fence post, and to me, that's just as good as cash. You can pay me in goat feed. You can pay me in chicken feed. I don't care. It don't have to be cash. But if you give me a product to review, I'll give you an honest opinion of it, and whatever. We'll work some kind of deal out, and that'll be fine for me, because, like I said, I don't care about getting rich. And if I make enough money off YouTube just to pay my internet bill, I'll consider that being lucky. But if I can get those corporate sponsors that'll pay me in trade or cash, doesn't matter, preferably trade, I'll take it. Because there's plenty of times whenever I need to roll a fence wire and I don't have the cash in my pocket. But if I've got a corporate sponsor and it's like, hey, I will run you into the ground in this video if I can get X feet of wire, or I need a couple bags of goat feed, 4 or 5 bags of goat feed. I'll do a 20-minute video and I will mention you at least 5 times as being a sponsor for me and sponsoring my video. I've got no problem doing that. So, I think that's probably what will be the best option for me, because if you ever want to know what someone makes on YouTube, socialblade.com, and then you type in the name. Yeah, I'll probably be doing affiliate links with them too, but until I'm big enough to actually show them that, hey, I've got a dedicated following, and this is the amount of time they spend watching, they really don't want to deal with me. And with 121 subscribers at the moment, I mean, what am I going to make? $1 or $2 a month? In most of these places, they're not going to pay out until it gets to where it's at least $100 or $200. I mean, they got set limits to how much they'll pay out, and it's like, I don't want to have to wait 6 months to get a check from somebody. That just gives them more time to figure out a way to screw me out of that money. I mean, in that course of time, they could set a time limit on it. Like, hey, if you haven't sold $100 worth of stuff through your link in 30 days, then you forfeit all the money that you would have earned through your link. And it's like wasting my time. So until I get an audience built up, I'm not even going to worry with those guys. But, and I thought about doing local businesses, but they're not going to want me to advertise on YouTube, because how many people in my town actually watch me on YouTube? Zero. Nobody in my town watches me on YouTube, even though I put it on Facebook that I have a YouTube channel. Don't even have any high school friends that watch me on YouTube. So my best bet is just to build up my following and then try to work out a deal with some of these bigger companies like Premier One, Tractor Supply, Lowe's, stuff like that, where I can get things I need for the farm, and not have to pay for it, just advertise for them. And if I put up a fence, put up a really nice fence, not like some of this crappy stuff you see these guys, like the goat fence video series, all these 5 guys got together and did. Looks like shit. I ain't gonna lie. Yeah, the hometown businesses, they're not gonna do it. But if you haven't seen the goat fence collaboration, I would not have put I would put my fence up against theirs any day, and mine is a 6-strand electric fence around an acre and a half. It's got 4 hot wires and 2 ground wires, and ain't no animal going through it without touching something that's going to make them hurt. But my brother-in-law is bringing over fence wire from his younger brother who had goats for his sons while they were in 4-H in high school, and the last one's graduating. So he's taken all that down, getting rid of all the goats, and I've gotten several of the feeders, the wire, stuff like that over here. And my brother-in-law works on power lines, so at my dad's house, he lives right next door to my dad with my sister that he's married to. Well, of course, he's my brother-in-law. He'd have to be married to my sister, Morgan. Now you're acting like everybody else on YouTube, stupid. But we take light poles and we use those for fence posts, because whenever you got a fence post this big around for a corner post compared to what they sell at Tractor Supply that's this big around, and mine's pressure treated to a higher standard than what they sell at Tractor Supply, the fence that me and my dad put up 25 years ago is still just as tight today as it was the day we put it up. And it's still got all the original fence posts, all the original braces, and it's all made out of power lines except for the fence, right down to the galvanized bolts that hold it all together. So my brother-in-law, I told my sister today to have him start off with 20 fence posts, and that'll get a major portion of my perimeter fencing done. And then I can figure out how many more I need after that, because I do things a little bit at a time. I plan out one day a week to do a lot of physical labor because I have to take pain pills if I overdo it. And I know on those days I'll overdo it. So if I'm going to take a pain pill, I'm going to make it worth my while. I'm going to get some work done. And if I can set 10 posts in one day, it's worth taking that Percocet for. But other than that, I do the light stuff the rest of the time. If I get the post in the ground, I can always, wait a couple days till I'm over being sore. Oh yeah, whenever I build a fence, I build a real fence. My dad taught me how, and it's the right way. It's the way that you see in, how would I describe, where you, like a real ranch. VW Farm has some fencing like it, but then again, they've also got nasty fence that they put in that collaboration. I mean, hog panels, cattle panels, really, that's not what you use to fence in animals. That's what you use to put across the gates so they can't slide through the gates and get out. You either weld tack it to the gate or you attach it with bolts. It's not made to be a fence. Makes an excellent trellis though, but it's not made to be a fence, a physical barrier. I mean, but I get part of what they're doing because you make do with what you have. I mean, it's just that simple. If you don't have the money to go out and spend on a 300-foot roll of wire, but you've got the money to buy 2 or 3 cattle panels and that'll get you by, that's what you do. I understand it. But my electric fence was merely for the fact of It's cheaper than the woven wire fence that I'm going to be putting up. I could get it done quick without being sore and hurting myself, and still get what I had to do done without having to take pain meds. I know putting this fence up, I'll have to take pain meds. So I'll try and get as much done as I can. And each one of those days I plan out, I'll plan like one day a week for a month to get the post set. And then after they're all set, then I'll come back and roll the wire out, and that won't hurt me too bad. I might be a little sore, but I won't have to take medication for it other than maybe Tylenol or something. And then I'll just set me a post out to the side, hook it, come along to it, pull it tight, set it up, and I'm good to go. And then I can unroll my electric fence and leave a hot strand or two on the opposite side of the fence, so that way the goats, man, my goats got a bad problem of rubbing up against any kind of fence they can get next to scratch on. I reckon I'm gonna have to get some Velcro or something and wrap it around a fence post and set it out there in the middle of the pasture so they can go rub up on it, or make something to scratch them with, because they're always, anytime I let them out in the free range, my chicken pen has got chain link fence around it, and they have about wallowed this chain link out. Just lean up on it as hard as they can and just walk down the whole thing. And I get so mad at them, and they'll look at me and just keep doing it. Even whenever I walk up toward them like I'm going to do something to them, they know me too well, though. They know I'm not going to do anything to them. But I'm thinking that I'm going to have kids in April. The two I had bred, they're starting to put on a little bit of weight. And one of them, I know she's already given me one kid, and then I rebred her, so hopefully she's going to throw twins. I don't know if the other one has ever kidded before, but I'm hoping she has, and I hope she throws twins. We just have to wait and see, but even if she just throws one, that'll be fine. So I'm not going to worry about that. That'll be nice, because baby goats are fun to play with. I ain't going to lie, they are fun to play with. But whenever I get that fencing done, then I can take the rest of that electric fence wire and I can use it in my garden as garden trellis. Because other than that, it would have to be jute. That way, jute, it'll rot through the year. I don't have to pick it up. But that aluminum lasts me for years. I would like to have one buck, because I've got one doe that I haven't bred. And if I get a buck, I breed it to that doe, and then I could have a project where I can line breed. Because it's line breeding if it's successful, it's inbreeding if it's not. But I bred my Nubians with a Kiko to get some of the parasite resistance of the Kiko line into my Nubians, and hopefully I'll get a buck out of it. And then all I got to do is, whenever I've got the extra money, go buy me another doe or two, and I should be good on genetics for quite a while, at least 2 seasons. And that'll be fine with me. And then I can, trade out bucks, because it's easier to trade out a buck than it is to trade out a bunch of does. Or I can just band his little boy parts, and when they fall off, feed him out and get him good and fat. And off the freezer camp he goes, because barbecued goat is pretty good. I won't lie, I've enjoyed it on several occasions. Sell Kitty, you are in my lap, and you know how I feel about that. What do you think is fixing to happen? You guessed correctly. You're getting put back on the floor. Good thing we have company. I didn't throw you. Destin, there he is again. That is the neediest cat I've ever had. He is under my feet all the time. I can't do anything without him being there. I go to the bathroom to take a poop, and he's got to go smell it. I don't know what it is with that animal, but he is blame sure aggravating. Yeah, my other cat looks just like him, except he doesn't have white feet. I like the gray and black tabbies. Those are my favorite. After that, I like black and white cats, especially when they look like a Holstein cow. Orange cats are my least favorite. I don't know why. I just never got into orange cats. And in calico, if they've got enough white in them, I like them. But the ones that don't have white, that they call tortoise shell, I don't really care about them. But now, if it's a boy calico, I'll gladly pay somebody $150, $200 for a boy calico cat because calico is recessive and male calico cats are extremely rare. And if I pay somebody $200, $300 for one, I'll even spend up to $500 for one because I know I can turn around and sell this thing for about $2,000. They are very rare. Yeah, all up and around you. Can't do nothing. I go outside. This one follows me outside and gets in between my feet, and I can't do nothing except kicking. And if he doesn't get smart soon, I'm gonna start kicking harder. And I hate to be mean like that, but I mean, it's just it is what it is. You got to start learning. Like this afternoon, he jumped up here in my lap. In the space of 5 minutes, I put him down at least 7 times, and the last time I finally just had to fling him across the room, and he almost hit the wall. And that's whenever he finally figured out maybe I ought not jump up there. Really, it took you 7 times for you to figure out? The last dog I had touched the electric fence twice, and he knew not to do it again. And I could fence my entire garden in with just baling twine. He wouldn't go in there to get his ball playing fetch. He'd stop dead and then look at you, wait for you to go get the ball because he thought it was electric fence. This cat ain't got half the intelligence. Aggravating blame animal. I don't know what I'm gonna do with him. I keep telling myself I'm gonna rehome him, but I haven't done it yet. But but I do need to find him somewhere else to live because he is aggravating me. And God, he eats like a horse. My other 15 pounds, and this one weighs about 6, and he eats 3 times as much. So I probably need to think about rehoming him in the very near future. Yep, I've only seen one male calico cat my whole life, and those people actually knew how much they were worth, and they weren't going to get rid of it. And I offered them $1,000 for it. So, needless to say, I didn't get a male calico. I wanted him bad enough, and I pulled my checkbook out and I said, here's the phone number to my bank. You want to go ahead and call them? Who do I make this out to? I'll write you a check right now for $1,000. Nope, wouldn't sell it. And he was a pretty cat too. He had big white spotches on him. He was real pretty. And this cat purrs louder than any other cat I've ever had too. That's the reason why he got banned from sleeping in the bedroom at night. See now, Easy Boy, he purrs, but he's quiet, and he quits after a few minutes. And ever since he was a kitten, he would come up and get right beside my pillow, headbutt me a couple times to tell me he loved me, and then he'd lay down. Well, this little asshole, he wants to get right on me and bunch the covers up where they're tight on me, and I can't stand anything to be binding on me at all when I'm asleep. And he gets there, and he's at the foot of the. He thought he was going to come up there and sleep right next to my face until I popped him in the head about 3 or 4 nights in a row, and then he decided he'd sleep at the foot of the bed, and then he'd get on my feet, and he ain't learned. Don't get on my feet, and that loud purring. So I got to where I'd kick him off the bed. And the last time I kicked him kind of hard. And he knows now whenever both cats are in the living room and I say, come on, Easy Boy, let's go to bed. Easy Boy will get down and walk in the bedroom with me. He knows he can get up and get where Easy Boy was sitting, or either he can stay where he is because he knows he's not allowed to go in the bedroom and sleep in there unless he wants to sleep on the floor. But he ain't getting on the bed. Boy, I dare you climb up. I dare you. You better sit right there. You're lucky you're sitting on the arm of this chair right now. I'll pick you up and toss you across this room again. Don't you look at me in that tone of voice. Go ahead and take my nighttime blood pressure medicine so I wake up without a headache. Yeah, he does. He needs kids that want to play. I mean, I play with him occasionally, but I'm usually too busy doing stuff to stop and get out there with him and do anything. I mean, he's a good cat. He's good natured, just as sweet as can be and lovable, but he's just he's the most active kitten I've ever had. He's just a handful. that, and I took him at a time whenever I knew I didn't need another cat at the time, but I knew he needed a home. So I took him because even though he aggravates the crap out of me, he's better off here than he is on the streets or in a shelter. So, but if somebody would hold the front end where I could get my pocket knife out and fix the back end, and he won't start spraying, he can be an inside cat because pretty soon he's going to be a totally outside cat, except for feeding time. And then it's going to be come in, eat what's in your bowl, and get the hell back out my house because you ain't spraying nothing. But so far, I've found no takers that will hold the front end of this cat so that I can operate on the back end. Because cats are just like hogs whenever it comes to fixing them. All it takes is a little incision, a little bitty pinch and squeeze. They pop out, snatch them off, throw them on the ground, spray him down with some purple wound spray, and let him go. And the next day, that he acts like nothing ain't never happened. But he is a pretty good cat, other than being aggravating and needy and hungry. And he ain't figured out that whenever I sit down with a plate, that don't mean do this with your head over my plate. He's got hit in the head with a spoon a couple times. He's learning that one though. He's picking up on that pretty quickly. That spoon, I think it hurts. That metal, it don't give. I've had cats to steal food too. I've had cats that ate corn on the cob. I've had cats that ate butter beans and green beans. I had a dog that would eat anything but a dill pickle. That was the only thing I found that he wouldn't eat was a dill pickle. He'd eat jalapenos. He'd eat anything, any vegetable you gave him, he'd eat. He just didn't eat dill pickles. He'd eat cucumbers, but he wouldn't eat dill pickles. But so far, the only thing this cat ain't ate is something that I haven't given him yet. He eats anything. It's like having a teenage kid in the house. He eats about as much as a teenage kid, too. He'll eat a 5-pound bag of groceries just by himself in a week. I got to ration him out to a cup a day. And that's actually more than what the bag says feed him for his body size. But I know he's growing and he's active, so he ain't getting fat, that's for sure. But then again, I've always known that animals on their own will not overeat. They will not get fat on their own. People make them fat because they give them treats. Yeah, I bet he liked that orange too. That sweetness in it, I bet he liked it. But did he shake his head whenever the acid got on his tongue? If it did, that would have been funny. I done forgot what I was talking about now, so I know it wasn't important. Oh, I was talking about animals overeating. On their own, an animal won't overeat. People cause them to eat. That's why they get fat. I had it. I had a time whenever I was real busy and I didn't have time to actually sit down with Easy Boy and make sure I put food in his bowl. And I would just cut a hole in the bag big enough for his head, and he would go and eat whatever he wanted to, and he's a big cat anyway. He's 15 to 20 pounds because he's been fixed. And people look at him and say, my God, he's huge. And I'm like, yeah, he's fixed. That's why he's as big as he is. He's not fat. You know, he doesn't overeat. I can give him a half a cup of food a day and he'll have some left over tomorrow. He's just big because he's been fixed. But people think I need to put him on a diet. No, he doesn't eat a cup of food a day. He doesn't. He barely eats half a cup of food a day. He'll have food left over tomorrow at half a cup of food a day. One great big old fistful of food, and he's got food left tomorrow. So animals don't naturally overeat. That's something people teach them by giving them snacks or saying, "Here, have this," and after they've already fed them, "Here, eat this. Here's this." And the dog's doing it to please you, so then he learns to overeat, or the cat does it to please you. They learn to overeat, and that's when they get fat. That's when they get obese. On their own, animals don't overeat. It's a learned behavior with them. And I guess it's the same way with people. Overeating is a learned behavior. People eat out of boredom and stuff like that. You know, overeating is not a natural occurrence in the wild with animal populations. And I'm pretty sure if people had things to occupy their mind, they wouldn't overeat either. And they say that the rural South has more obesity than the rest of the nation, and I can understand why. I mean, we live in small towns, and there's not a lot of activities and things to keep people interested and active. So, they're stuck at home in front of the TV all day. So, what are they going to do? They're going to sit there and they're going to snack. So it's a behavior they pick up on their own. It's not something that's natural or born into us to overeat. Exactly. In the animal world, overeating is a learned behavior taught to an animal by a human. Unless, of course, you're a hog, which whenever I got my hog, she was bigger than she is now. But I got her from a chicken house, and she was fed a diet of ground corn, or she was fed a diet of high protein chicken feed and all of the eggs that didn't pass inspection. That's what they fed those hogs. And my sister had already had someone give her some pork from a hog that came from a chicken farm, and it was nasty. And I said, well, gee, if that's the case in question here, I know how to remedy that. This hog was raised on concrete, and whenever I turned her loose in my pasture, she took to eating grass and stuff like that like crazy. I didn't have to feed her for the first week. She ate grass. That's true too. They sit there and play on the computer or on their cell phone, and they don't get up. Boy, get your paw off me. You ain't getting down here. Trying to get in my lap. He knows better. But people don't. They're not active like they used to. And I didn't feed my hog for the first week she was here. She was happy on that grass because she'd never had it. She didn't have grass where she lived before. So now I feed her. She weighs about 300 pounds, and I feed her 1 pound of feed per 100 pounds of body weight. And the rest of it she gets from free ranging off the grass and the roots and stuff that she digs up while she's cleaning up around the edge of my pond. And she's doing a mighty fine job at it, to say the least. But she's lost a little bit of weight. So if I breed her after she has the piglets and they're weaned, I'll put her on a straight corn diet and I'll fatten her back up so I have plenty of leaf lard and plenty of plain lard to render out. And there'll be good marble to the meat with fat in it so it won't be quite so dry. And then I'll butcher her out after I fatten her up on corn. But I figured I wasn't going to butcher her right off the bat just because of what I heard about that. And it's like, nope. Sell kitty, get down. Go not to get on me. Oh, they love acorns. And I'm about the fence in part of the timber, and they don't have any pine trees on it, but there's 4 or 5 big ones, and they've marked the property line where they say it is, and it's actually not my property. It's their property, and I'm fixing to take where they mark the property line and go all the way down to the very back corner of my property line because it's full of nothing but bushes, oak trees, hardwoods, and I'm gonna, after I get the perimeter fence put up, I'm gonna electric fence that in, and I'm gonna turn my next set of pigs loose in there along with the goats, and just let them clean that out because it's full of brush, all kinds of undergrowth that needs to go because it's snake heaven, and I'll eliminate a lot of that. I may even call the timber company and see if I can get permission to. There's a little dirt road about a quarter of a mile down from me, and ask them if I can fence in from my property line to that dirt road, that whole square, and just run my goats and pigs through there and just tell them, look, not going to bother you pine trees, not going to cut any trees down, just want to run my animals through it to help save me on feed cost and to have a little extra room so I can grow my herd. And more than likely, they'll rent it to me for $100 an acre, and it might be 4 or 5 acres here, and they'll probably let me have it for $100 an acre for a 5-year contract. They're pretty good about that. I mean, they rent a lot of it out for a hunting club, so I'm pretty sure I might could even get it for $20, $25 an acre for a year. So no big deal. If not, then I'll just probably get me some one of those electric fences, in-ground electric fence for the dog with a shot collar, and put that on my goats and just turn them loose and let them go out there and have at it. And I think that would be pretty cool. A goat with a dog collar on, a shot collar to keep them confined, no fence. They just roam wherever they want to, which now they need to stay in the pen because they've pruned my rose bushes backing up that I don't need to prune them this year. So I got to keep them pinned up too, or then I won't have any roses. One of the few flowers that I actually grow, and they've trimmed that. I've got to do a video where they've gotten to my camellia bush, and I usually have camellias from the ground up to the top of my house, but from about 5 foot down, there, there's hardly any leaves and no flowers, and the petals are all over the ground. They have gone through and they have popped off all the flowers and didn't eat those, and then ate all the leaves off the limbs, and there's nothing but just bare branches hanging out. It kind of looks funny. they've pruned it up for me too, which I they did me a favor because I do need to get in there and cut those branches off so that they're not down on the ground to where it harbors mice and and stuff like that. And that way, if I do let my chickens out in the free range, if a hawk flies around, they've got a place that they can run up under and get to without, having to slow down if a hawk's chasing them. And I'm not here to shoot it. So, and yes, United States government, I shot a hawk. You owe me for 5 chickens that I know of. So either you can pay me for those chickens and then you can write me a ticket for killing that hawk, or shut up. Now watch the FBI be knocking on my door tomorrow morning. And I'll tell them I was lying. It was all a joke. Find the body. Because if the pig don't eat it, I tie a rock around his foot and I throw it in the pond. Oh, you think it's hurting themselves on thorns on a rose bush? You ought to see them when they run across a patch of wild blackberries with all them thorns. They'll mow that slap down to the bare ground. The thorns don't bother them. See, oh, kitty, didn't I just put you down there? See what I mean? No common sense. Hard-headedest cat I've ever had in my life. But a goat will eat briars. It's like ice cream to them. They go crazy over anything that's got briars. Got to fill up my tea glass. I came prepared tonight. I went ahead and brought the jug out with me. And actually, goats only have teeth up front. They don't have back teeth. So clip off what they want, and then they just kind of swallow it, partially digest it. Then they bring it back up, and they chew it with their gums like a cow. They're chewing their cud. And by the time it comes back up for them to rechew, the thorns are already soft and you know half digested. No, they'd probably put me in jail for shooting a hawk. It's illegal to kill hawks and eagles and owls and any kind of bird of prey. But I'm sorry. The Constitution says that I am entitled to life, liberty, not the pursuit of happiness. That's in the Declaration of Independence. But life, liberty, and property. And the government's property is denying me my property by flying away with it and eating it. Well, I wish they had spidey senses because Spider Man knew when to come and go. This cat don't. He needs spidey senses. You're going to eyeball me, ain't you, cat? I uncross my legs and you think it's time to get in my lap. But think again, buddy. My foot was going to sleep. That's the only reason. That cat ain't got no common sense. You better be glad you're a black and white tabby or else you wouldn't be here. If you were orange, you'd be homeless. Because I wouldn't have took you to begin with. And if I did take you and felt sorry for you and you acted like this, I would have just dropped you off in a nice neighborhood on my way to school one morning. Yes, I'm taking my shoes off. If it's okay with you, mister. Watches me like a hawk. Everything I do. I'm allowed to take them off. It's okay. I do give him credit though. At least he doesn't go after my shoestrings like most cats do. So I give him credit for that. He's not a ball of twine string cat. He's more of a ball cat. He likes, if I had a golf ball or a ping pong ball, he'd go nuts. I've got a few pecans left over from the fall. Man, he goes crazy if I bring one of those in the house and drop it on the floor. He goes nuts sliding that thing everywhere. You too, Virginia. You have a good night's rest, and I hope the day goes well for you tomorrow. And God bless you too. And tomorrow is Wednesday. So I think I'm going to my Baptist church tomorrow instead of the church down the road where the people aggravate me all the time. Because if I'm at the Baptist church where I prefer to be instead of the other denomination down the road, which I'm only interested in because the building was built in 1901, I'm not here for them here for them to come down and demand that I go eat supper with them. Today is Tuesday. I have had to eat with them Sunday, Monday, and tonight. And I've been trying to cook this pork chop that's in my refrigerator all 3 of those days. And if I open that bag up tomorrow morning, because I'm going to cook that pork chop for my breakfast, it's got to be cooked. If it smells bad and I've got to give it my hog or those chickens, I'm going to be a little upset. But I can't say anything. They're good-hearted people. They're just like everybody else. They're strange in their own ways. We all are. So I guess I ought not complain and fuss about them. At least somebody's nice enough to offer you to come eat dinner with you. And I did help them out with a few groceries today because they fed me so much. I gave them some deer sausage and a few other canned goods that was given to me that I don't eat. So, what goes around comes around. Do a favor for somebody, they do it for you. But anyway, I will shut up so you can go get you some rest and you have a good day tomorrow. And if you get the opportunity tomorrow night, if you're a regular church goer, have a good one at church. If not, I hope you go Sunday because I plan on being there Sunday because I've missed the last 3, either being sick or it raining or me just being tired and sore from working. So this Sunday, I am not missing it because I don't want to miss it. Anyway, you have a good night. I'm going to hang out for a few more minutes, see if somebody might pop in. I doubt it. And then I'm probably going to call it a night myself. Get me a little bit of rest. Get up in the morning because I've got some chicken fencing to finish up. I got this stuff laid out and ready to go. I just got to assemble it. And if I'm on tomorrow night, I'll talk to you. Saturday night, Seventh day Adventist or a Catholic Mass. which really doesn't matter either way to me. As long as you're a believer, I'm good with it. But if you're still listening, I'll talk to you tomorrow or the night after. You have a good day tomorrow, and God bless you too.